All right, guys, thank you for joining me. This is Daniel the Adjuster, and we are back doing Xactimate training. I've had several people say to me, when are you going to continue in your Xactimate training? Because I want to learn more. So, further requests, they do get priority, so here we are. We're going to get started. Today we're going to learn a little more about roof scenarios that pop up sometimes in Xactimate where they're difficult to draw or there's little glitches in the system. So we're going to talk about those. So let's get started. So head over to Xactimate, just created a basic roof system here. And one of the things that shows up sometimes when we draw a gable roof, so first of all, you've got your roof line, you pull out your left and right side to, maybe it's 35 feet or whatever it is, and then your rake, it can be whatever it is, whatever your measurements are. Make sure that you click on it and come up to the properties and change your slope. That would be your very first thing that you do. You definitely don't want to wait and drag all your measurements in first, because as soon as you change the pitch, then the rake distance is going to change. So always plop down your main roof system there, come into here, change your pitch under the slope rise. Both front and back maybe the same, maybe they're not. So make sure you check on that. Let's go ahead and put an 8 in there for a front and back slope. So now you'll want to drag your rake distance to the actual measurement that's on your drawing, like on your house. Because now that you've got your rake right, your pitch right, I'm sorry, then your rake measurement will be right. Okay, so when we're going to add in a gable to the front of this, use your brake tool at the top there, click over here, and you're going to hold your control button and you're going to pull out and you're going to get your rake there. Now, inevitably, it never fails, but notice down here, I'm going to zoom right in, we've got overhang differences. So you got a 12 on the original rake, and then when you pull out this gable, it automatically sets up for 16. So you click on it, drag it open, or drag it over to close it down. You can do the same thing on all sides, because a lot of times you're not at 16 overhang, you're only at 12 overhang. You want everything to be consistent there. So that's a quick fix there. Also, change your pitch. Come up here, click on it. Left and right might be a 12-12. So you just go ahead and put your 12 in there and it changes it. Now, one of the things that I have noticed, and in this situation it didn't do it, but if you go into the 3D mode and you drag this thing and you look over here, sometimes it will throw a little, they call it a strip, a Cornice strip, over here on that left side. It sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. And I don't know exactly why it does it, and sometimes and doesn't do it other times, but if you muck with that, sometimes when you go into your 3D mode, you'll have a little Cornice strip over there. I don't know. It's the strangest glitch that sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't, and I've never figured out what makes it different and why it shows up. I was hoping to be able to show you guys why that does it, but for some reason it didn't do that. Okay, so that's one of those things that shows up sometimes. Now the easiest way to fix it, I'm going to show you guys how to fix it, just so that in case you ever come up to it. And what I mean by that, let me go to 3D again. You're going to see a strip that comes all the way back to wherever the end of your roof line is. Like wherever this end here is, that's where that Cornice strip's going to show up. So the easiest way to fix it is to click on your roof system, pull it out, use your brake tool, and just click inside the overhang and then bring that end into like a couple feet. Okay, and then you'll bring this roof line back just inside that dotted line, close it off, and then now adjust your overall width of that roof line. Okay, so we went a little bit too far on the inside here. So we'll just come up to there, to wherever it comes in, bring it in to that point, and see then what it'll do is when you pull out your 3D, you're going to have, your Cornice strip's going to go away, in other words. You can't see it on this one, but that's how you're going to fix it, is you just bring in, extend out this roof line. I'm going to show you guys again. Extend out the roof line, and then break it, and then bring it back into a line, bring this one back in, and then bring the roof line back in. It's a glitch. I've brought it up to Xactimate, and they are apparently working on it along with 100 other things that it seems like I've talked to them about. But I actually did get a chance. I'll tell you a great story. I did have a lot of problems when the first version of X1 came out. And I called up and I was so frustrated because it was really slowing me down with a lot of the glitches they had. And so finally, one of their managers, the software team managers, gave me a call and said, hey, I've seen you call in like every other day, you got problems and you're frustrated. I just wanted to see if I could help you. And I said, yes, thank you so much for calling. Yes, I've got some big issues. And so he said, can you put together a list and I'll give you a call and then we can talk through those things and see if we can get them all put onto one ticket so they can have a list that they can work through. I was like, yeah, right. You're going to call me back? I highly doubt this. Well, sure enough, he calls me back. We go through the list and then he follows up literally a week later and says, I got my technicians all working on these things. You'll start noticing some of the updates that come in that some of those things will be fixed. And I was like, you got to be kidding. And I was just floored. I was like, really? And he goes, well, you said you were frustrated and those were good things. Those are important fixes that we need to take care of. And sure enough, a lot of those things started going away and they were big issues for me personally. And I'm sure that 100 other people were probably feeling the same way too. And so that's how good of a company they are. They really do listen to us as adjusters when we have problems. So I really like it. All right, so let's go back. One of the things that comes up all the time is when you're adding in a shed roof. Okay, so say you got a porch roof and a shed roof on the front of this roof system here. Okay, so you come up here and grab your shed roof. Some reason, this is where it's going to be. It's going to be right here on this edge, so you can zoom in and say, oh yeah, that's where it's going to go, is right here, starting there. And then, you can leave it overlap just a smidgen. You want to take your overhang off, drag that back, and then bring out here to where, it dies into this roof line or something, or maybe it goes over just a smidgen, but either way, you can end right there. But one of the things that I have noticed, and this is, again, probably a glitch for them. So let's say I go up here and I change my pitch. Okay, it's already at a 4, it's good. But when I do my 3D and see where it pops up, look where it does. It sits on top of the roof. So it doesn't differentiate between that I'm adding a porch in versus just adding something that's in that same line or the roof line of like all these gables are all at one level. Well, that shed roof's right at that level too. So it doesn't differentiate between a shed that I'm going to be putting in as a porch roof versus a shed that I'm going to be doing level with everything else. So in some respects, they're defaulting to the same plane as all these, the returns are all going to be equal. But hey, if I'm doing a shed roof on the front porch, all I can do is click on this and that little triangle. See that triangle right there, that white triangle on top of the box? You're just going to grab that, click on it, hold it, and drag it down. And all of a sudden now, I've got that porch roof right where it's supposed to be. And a lot of people ask me, they say, it doesn't matter, like, do I need to measure like this distance right here between the roof lines and make sure it's 9 feet or whatever it happens to be, or 8 feet for that porch roof? I say no. Don't be so particular when you're drawing your drawings to say, hey, I've got to make sure that's absolutely perfect. Now, in a scenario like where you're measuring siding, then you're going to be drawing out the measurements of that anyways. You're going to be dimensioning that elevation in your line items, in your estimate line items. You're not going to be doing it on your sketch. Your sketch, to this point, we're not using any type of scoping that's going to be measuring the outside of this drawing here in order to get our measurements. We're not at that point. Most of our estimates are not that way. So yeah, we just basically, it doesn't matter where I put that shed roof as long as it's lower and it's not sitting on top of the other roof line. The reason why it's important to fix that height level is because if it's sitting on top of another roof line, like the main gable roof, then you're taking square footage out of that gable roof to sit that shed roof on top. And that's not right, because then your measurements would be wrong. So you want to definitely lower it, put it down, and put it where it needs to go so you get both of those roof lines at full square footage for measuring the roof product. Okay, so let's go back to the sketch here. One of the things we do run into sometimes is we'll have a gable roof that will be on the front as a decorative gable roof that sits on top of the shed roof. Downside is there's no fix to this, okay? There's no quick fix. So you just have to go into your roof line, add the gable. So you got a little gable roof, tab to turn it. And maybe what I'll do is I'll draw it out here first. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of my overhangs, because I don't have an overhang on the left and right on this one. Now I might have a strip cornice strip on the front, so I'm going to leave that because when I draw it, it's actually going to help me get my cornice strip in there. And then maybe I'll pull this back just a smidgen. Okay, grab my pitch, make sure we're sitting at 4 pitch, yep. And maybe this thing I already measured and I know it's at like 5 feet, okay? So I can drag that in at 5 feet. So put it in at 5. I've got my, I don't really know where it's gonna land on the top, so I just leave it a little bit long. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna drag it on top. And see, the nice little thing about the center line of that slope is you can line them right up, okay? So then maybe you wanna pull back your overhangs. See, that's 16 again on the front. Actually, maybe we want to go back to 12 and change this to a 12 because that's really what they're supposed to be. Now, so you're thinking, oh, great, looks great. No, there's again that level issue. It's not on the right plane. So look at when you go into your 3D mode, there it is, sitting way up there and it's level with that next layer. So they always default to all the majority of where the roof line is. They very rarely will ever put it down lower. So again, click on the roof. Get that little triangle and drag it down. Now you can't quite see it there, so then we'll have to maybe change our view just a smidgen. Go back into our 3D. Okay, scrolling out your thing here, scrolling out your mouse button, and again, grab that thing, grab that little triangle, drag it down, and then trying to put it exactly where it should go is hard, but with practice you'll be able to line up that little corner right there with the front edge of that shed roof, and there it is. There's your little thingy. Okay, so it's not difficult, but it's a pain because the system is not saying, hey, I'm doing a shed roof on another level, or I'm doing a shed roof to the addition, just to the existing roof. So it's always going to default to the upper roof, and we've got to drag it down and change it. And again, that's just part of the system. It's not perfect, but you know, in order to draw it and get the right measurements, we got to do that. Okay, so let's pull this out. Another one we run into is your bay roofs. So we got a little bay roof that's on the back, on the lower level. So again, go into your roof, come down here to custom, there's bay roof, click on it, tab, until you can get to the right position of it. And what is it gonna do? You're gonna pull it in, let's zoom in. We're gonna be pulling in and going right to the edge of the house. Okay, so the bay roof is on the back side of the house on the lower level. So once you get that in position, you just click it, and what does it do? Drops it in on the top level. So look at that. There it is on the top level. So no big deal. We just take, again, grab that, go to find that little triangle, drag that thing down, and again, you don't have to be perfect about where that sits. Just make it look like it's about 8 or 9 feet down from the next level, somewhat and similar. Come on out of it. Now this is where you can adjust your measurements. Typically they're not at this angle. The default always seems to be the wrong angle, so you just click on it. Normally they're about 3 feet on one side, and they're 5 feet across on the top most of the time. So then you just drag these things out however they fit to make them 5 feet, 3 feet, and 3 feet. And even if you're close, within an inch, don't be so particular about the measurements. If you're in there and you got, maybe you measured 3 feet and it's 3'1", hey, 1 inch is not gonna make a difference on this, so try not to get too caught up in it. As far as the exactness of it, that'll slow you down when you're drawing. Okay, so then we go look at this thing in 3D, and sure enough, it looks pretty good on the backside, looks like that. Now the thing we might have to change is the pitch, because a lot of those bay roofs are gonna be up in the 7 to 8 pitch range. So when you change that, then you come back and look at it. Now it starts to look a little bit more like your typical bay roof on the back side of the house. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about, this is a troubled roof system that I've run into before that's actually kind of hard to draw. And that's where, if you look over on a drawing here, we're gonna have a portion of this left, let's say the one I came onto is this left section had a different pitch than this side did. And yet all of this was still the same pitch. So what I mean by that is this had like I think it was like a 10-12 on this side, and then over here was the original roof line. And sometimes you'll have a shed roof that's a 5 or something like that, but a lot of times they go all the way to the edge. This is a new design I guess builders are doing now, but it went all the way to the edge with a regular roof line, but then it stopped and then changed roof lines and went down to a different pitch. So it's hard to draw because I can't just put a shed roof in and change the pitch, because then the upper roof is still going to be in place. So the only way to fix that is use your cut tool or break tool, break where that roof line is. You don't have to hold anything, just drag this in, come here. Now you got to take out your overhang. Take out your overhang there. This one does stay. So this one you're going to take right to the peak. Okay, so right to the peak. It's kind of hard to get it right on the peak. Right on that ridge. Okay, so when you look at it in 3D, okay, we got an overhang there we messed up on, so let's get back there. So that's why I always pull my 3D. And we didn't get our overhang disappeared on that one. This one's, now we're mucking up that one. Oh, now you can go back. See, I did all these different things wrong. Just go back. That little back button up there will fix all your mistakes that you do if you do too many of them. Okay, so you get ready to overhang. Now we take that to the peak. Okay, and we can stop right there or close to it. Now, see, what's happening is this thing is still getting that overhang grasping. So, click on this side, then grab it. That way, you're not just clicking on the line and grabbing the overhang. Okay, so this is important to get as close as you can to that ridge. Okay, so there's that piece. Now, this is where you're going to grab your shed roof tool. You're going to tab to turn it around, the arrow directional. See the arrow right there at the top? That's pointing as the low spot and it's going up. Okay, so you want to get rid of your overhang here. This one needs to go away as well because this is butting up against the wall of that separate roof. Then you're going to come in here, change your pitch to a 10. All right. And then now this is where you're going to drag that thing, match it up right to the peak. Click it again, drag this over to the wall. Okay, and now you drag your piece down here. Normally they end right at the same level. Okay, so you're thinking, oh, that looks the same, right? Well, if you 3D it, it's not going to be quite the same until you adjust the heights. So that's where you're going to bring down that peak and put it right where it's supposed to go. And then there you are. And then you've got that separate roof line that's a different angle. Whereas this one, and a lot of times what will happen is this upper roof is actually more like a shed roof. It would be like a 5. So you can go over here, A and B the same. So A and B the same. No, we want to change that. Maybe we make A was what it was and B was a 5. Okay, so that was that 512. Okay, so you know how, notice how everything changed now, all our measurements changed. All we can do is switch it and we come over here and bring that thing back to where it should be. Everything kind of messes up when you change the pitch halfway through your drawing, so not good. Not good, fellas. Okay, so the same thing will come up here, 3D it. Now that'll be changing a little bit so we can, oh, that didn't change that 5. Look at that. Oh, I changed the front to a 5. That's what I did. I changed the wrong one. Okay, so we can go back. Just go back and change all that. Okay, so we wanted A to be the 5 and B to be the 8. Okay, so it did change everything just a little bit. Okay, we can get, this is the gable roof here that's actually extending, and we can shorten that up. All right, and then this one, we're gonna put our shed back here to the point, come into our 3D tool, and then bring that baby back in down level where it's supposed to be. And the reason why I'm telling you this, guys, is that we do see these a lot. Like, as architects start building one style of house, we will start to see that same house being built all the time. So if you see kind of a weird roof system that all of a sudden showed up and you're like, I've never seen that one before on a new house, get ready, because you're gonna start to see it all the time, all over the areas that new houses are being built. So it's always good for you to learn how to draw it, because they're going to show up often. Okay, so there's that roof system. See how that worked, guys? We got a little 512 on there, a 1212 there. I ran into this roof the other day. I'm going to start seeing those roofs all the time because they're building them. And so, you know, regular roof on the front, And then it had this beautiful little extra thing here, a bigger room on the back, so a little more space up in the upper room, kind of like that. But it's not a shed roof like in the middle of the slope, it's right there on the end. And so you can't just put a shed roof there, because then that gable regular pitch is going to show up as well. And that's going to add square foot to your roof line, and that's not correct. Okay, so does that make sense to you guys? Hey, and then here's the cool thing. So one thing you got to remember, guys, this is really important. Okay, so once you've drawn all this, you got all these different faces. If I come over to my estimate line items, I'm going to have all these different roof systems. Let's go to, is this one down here, level 4 is what I'm doing. It's going to have them all broken down into all these different roof lines. So you can't forget the most important step after you've drawn your whole roof is to put a box around it, right click on roof 1, and then combine. Okay, so you notice down here, level 4, that's why we were on that thing. So let's go back to our estimate items. Level 4 at the bottom, now everything is all roof 1. It's all combined now. So that's an important step. And the reason being, guys, is that when I go to write my estimate, and you remember, the macros are how you build your estimates. So you come in here to options, macros. Okay, got all my macros saved in here. Say I'm doing a 3 tab, so I'll put in 3. And all of a sudden, there's all my things with 3. And there's all my 3 tab, 3 tab, 3 tab, all these different things. So I'm going to do a 3 tab, replace, okay? And I'm going to put that on the roof. And boom, that quick. Okay, that quick. I've got my 3 tabs. So what I did is I put it in the wrong spot because I just put it on the level. But you can do this by just changing. Go up here. Come down to the bottom, highlight it all, Control X, hit roof 1, hit in the cat spot and category spot and paste, and it'll pop right in that quick. Okay, the reason why I would say that I'm bringing up the macros, guys, is that's how fast I can write this estimate and get a roof estimate done. They tear off, the 3 tabs in there, the felts in there, pipe jacks. We don't do the painting anymore, so I just delete that. Furnace vents, if there was a 6-inch or an 8-inch. If there was a split boot, this is for your power supply on these older houses that have a power pole that comes up through the roof. That's called a split boot. You got your goosenecks. You know, those are just those little things that tip over and have a little vent there. You got a regular vent where there's a turbine. You've also got your shingle overstyle continuous ridge vent. You've got your turtle vent. Now, sometimes you got a power vent and all you're doing is replacing the cover because it was just hail damage. So I've got one line item for the power vent. Cover only. You got flashing, if it is colored, step flashing, you got rain diverters, satellite dish, and you got skylights. And here's that thing I was talking about is the Gable Cornice returns. Now let me show you guys what those are. Gable Cornice returns show up right here at the front, right there. Okay, so that's a Gable Cornice return right there and right there where they put a little 5 shingles in there in that corner. Okay, so, and if it's up on 2 stories, which means you got to get a 2-story ladder to get to it, then you're going to be writing for 2-story on that. If it's on the bottom level, like this one here, if that strip has not drawn in, so if let's zoom in on that, if I can get in there, if that strip, sorry guys, if that strip had not shown up in the drawing, I would have to add in about 7 feet of strip. That's called a Cornice strip. Okay, so if you go back to your roof line items, here's that Cornice strip down here. So it says Cornice, Gable Cornice return. That's a lower level. This is the upper level, 2 stories or greater. And then the strip is the lower level, which is on that front porch. But if I had one that was up on the upper level, then it would be a 2-story. And those are all line items already in there. So I just got to come in there and go, well, I got 2 of those, I got 4 of those, or whatever. Just go through and do it. We don't do any mastic anymore. We don't have to do that. But these macros have some items in it that you don't need. You just delete them. I don't have any rain diverters. I just come in, delete the rain diverter. Okay, I don't have any Cornice strips. So I just go, oh, delete, 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 delete. Okay, I don't have any skylights. I can just go delete. Okay, there was no satellite dish. Okay, my flashing was not damaged. Delete that. Step flashing was not damaged. Delete that. Oh, I did have a power vent. I just got to come in here. I got to do one. Oh, I had one turtle vent. I had one. I had my ridge had shingle overstyle continuous ridge vent, and I can do ridge and I can do -10. I just count all the blank spots that are on that roof, and I can do ridge -10 feet. Okay. Turbine type, I did not have one of those, so I can just delete that. I had one gooseneck. I didn't have a split boot. I can take that one out. Only had one furnace vent, but it was a 6-inch, so I just put one in there, and I had two pipe jacks. Okay, so you come down, and the steep and tall, guys, this is important how you got to do this. You can't do it on this unless you're reading it off the Eagle View. You're reading it off the Eagle View, then you can type in the numbers for what they stated was the high and low, or whatever the steep charge is there. You can type that in. If not, I've got to go back to my sketch. Okay, go back into the regular version. Remember, this was a 12, this was a 5, this was an 8. Okay, so I'm going to go RFG. You're going to memorize this, RFG steep, and it's going to automatically come up for additional for 712 to 912. So we click on that, and we know that that front porch was an 8. All I got to do is click once, and it adds it in. Okay, so look down there. It does the square foot of roof F2. That's what that is, a square foot of or F2 square footage. And you can read it right there, F2, 4.94 squares, and it's an 8. Okay, it tells you all your slopes over here. So you don't even have to remember them. They're all listed here. And it's a good way for you guys to check that also to make sure you're doing it right. Okay, so then we had, any others that were an 8? Yes, we had that little bay roof at the back. Okay, so we had a bay roof. We'll come down here, and all I got to do is click on it, and boom, all of those just got an 812 as well. And so go back here, type in RFG steep, and the rest of them were 10s or 12s. So you click on the 10 to 12. That one was a 10 to 12. This one was a 12 right here in the front. Okay, and everything else was low. These were all low pitch on the front, and we got everything else. Now you go highs, RFG high. This is steep and tall. This is basically, well, not steep and tall, but it's just tall. So if you've got to get the 2-story ladder to get to that second level, that's how they determine that it's a high roof. So you click on your high roof. This one here, I can get to it on the backside on a 1-story ladder. So that's not a high roof. Okay, so this one's a high roof. So I click on that. This one's a high roof because I got to climb, I got to do a double pull on that front in order to get to it. So that's a high. And these are a high. And you can do each one of those just by hanging over the roof symbol. So then you can see, I've got them all highlighted. If you make a mistake, I just highlight over it again, and I just put delete, and it goes away. One click, and it goes away. Oops, I need to put it back. One click, goes back. So guys, don't forget, my macros are for sale, so if you want them, just check the link in the bio, and you guys can pick up those macros and write these estimates super quick. So if you notice down at the bottom, it puts in all the square footages of those roof systems right away, perfectly. A square is the squares of how many was in there. I actually have this already calculated. So a typical roof, which is a gable roof, is 10% waste. So I automatically put the calculation in square times 10, 1.10 or 1.10. So I'm actually saying, hey, I want the square, which is 1, and then I want 10% more. That's the 0.10. By doing the square times 1.10, that adds it all in, and now you get the waste already built in. Now, one of the most important things you got to remember to do after that is right-click, make sure we got our coverage and our depreciation set correctly. So we're going to do global changes. We're going to change to coverage to dwelling, and then you're going to click up here again and go to depreciation. And we know that roof is depreciated by age and condition. That's going to be typical of every carrier out there is going to do by age and condition. Uncheck that box and put in the age of the roof. And you've talked to them, or maybe it was the original roof. You're going to have a conversation with them to say, hey, do you know if the roof's ever been replaced in the course of this time, or is this the original roof? And a lot of times when you look at that roof, you'll be able to say, yep, that's the original roof. I can tell. It's old and it's falling apart. Well, then that's probably a 15-year-old house and 15-year-old shingle. Okay, the condition. This, you're not going to change much. Normally it's going to be average, but if you walk up into that roof and you just feel this thing, it says it's 10 years old, but it's tore up. You know, it's all sorts of garbage all over this, and the roofers have damaged it. You could put a little bit below average, but I typically don't do that. It's not really the homeowner's fault that the roof was below average. They expected the roof was in good shape when they put it on. But if there's tons of repairs and, you know, maybe there was some old hail damage that never got repaired, you could put below average on that. And that affects how much depreciation they're going to take on the roof, so it's important to make sure you're evaluating that properly. But you put in average, and depreciation is normally recoverable. You always want to check this or make sure it's put in right. You do have some ACV policies. If they reported the roof 2 years after the storm and there was no storms ever since, then yeah, you might have to put that as ACV, non-recoverable depreciation. So that's why all these numbers are real important to get the right age, the right condition, and then look in the policy to see if it's recoverable or non-recoverable. But most of the time, it is going to be recoverable depreciation, and then you push OK, and it's going to do its little work thing, and it's done. So then one way to look at it is come up here in this summary. Okay, so we got a lot of other stuff in the estimate, so we may have to go down and find it here, but if we go down to the bottom, which I think is our roof 4, let's see where it came up. Nah, it's still going to do a total. Yeah, it's going to do a total. It's not going to break it down into roof 4. Yeah, so it's going to do a total. So anyways, but you can see they're going to do depreciation as a separate line item right here. This is what they're going to get back. See, total recoverable depreciation when they get it back is $10,000. Out of that, there's the deductible. So you want to always check to make sure your deductible is there, and make sure you put it in, because if you don't put it in, it's not going to show up in the estimate, and then you wrote the estimate wrong. Okay, and your tax and all that's there too. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. And so a few extra tips there on your roof. Hopefully that helped you, and we'll do another one soon. Daniel the Adjuster, helping you be the best adjuster. Take care.